Welcome, Star Switch community, to a new video and the first episode of Behind the Devs, where we interview developers asking uncomfortable questions about upcoming game changes, updates, and design concepts. We gather questions from community members and moderators, carefully following what you guys write in comments below social media posts or on Discord. Today's topic is about combat, because it has remained the same, more or less, for a long time now. Yes, we did add stats to weapons and we implemented some abilities. We also updated the way, for example, some guns consume energy. But that's not enough. Combat will be as important as exploration and building, so why not improve it by adding some spicy changes? Without wasting more time, let's get into the interview. My name is Thomas and I had the opportunity to interview Dave about how combat will change. How many weapon archetypes are we planning, and how different will they be from each other?
Weapon archetypes. Right now we have about 15 or 16 different weapons planned, and that's not including things like combat tactics and combat engineer and a couple other things. So we have a lot of weapons that are coming. Right now in the game, we're running what I would call playtest weapons, which are not intended for the launch product of the game, which is we have about 6 weapons right now as of this next update that we're putting out. And they have a couple of specials each and primary fires and everything like that, so that ends up being around 20-something different options on the weapons. We will be going to 15 or 16, and when we set up the skill trees, right now each weapon can have 2 different specials on it. Well, you'll be able to actually unlock a lot more specials than that for a particular weapon. So like, for instance, if you had the laser whip, you might be able to unlock 5 or 6 different specials, but it's what you get crafted into that weapon is what you can actually use. So there's lots of options. Each of the weapons is very distinctive from the other weapons, so that we can give them specific roles on the battlefield, whether that's crowd control or whether it's area of effect, stunning, things like that. They all have different abilities. So yeah, 15 or 16 is where we're going, and plus things like that are fun, like combat engineering, combat tactics.
Someone from the community once mentioned dual wield blasters. Is it something we are planning to add?
Dual wielding is actually annoyingly harder than it should be, because it's not that big a deal to set it up technically. It's just that you have to have a whole other set of animations for it. So when you have a pistol, then you have to say, well, I'm going to commit to the fact that you can have a single pistol in one hand or multiple pistols, like 2, 1 in each hand, that sort of thing. And then there's all the tuck and roll moves and everything like that you want to do, so you get the whole John Woo, moving through the air and shooting, things like that. And so that's a maybe. We will definitely have pistol gameplay and lots of things in there we intend to do, like trick shots and a bunch of different elements that go with that. But as far as dual wielding goes, not directly. We do have drones where you can have multiple drones out and running around. You'll be able to give commands to drones to be able to do different things on the battlefield, and a number of other things that are fun and unusual, but not directly just the dual wield blasters, not right now.
You mentioned drones. Are we talking something similar to turrets, like the video we did?
They're different. A turret is cool. That's something that the combat engineer will be able to use, and you may have seen that in other games like Tribes or PlanetSide or some of the other games that I work with, where you can basically put down a turret, it goes and it activates, and then you can run away. And it does its own thing, or you might be able to control it from a remote location. But then there's also drones, and drones are like a weird combination between pets and weapons. So there'll be a drone that you can have, and then you can send it off to fight independently of you, or be able to control it, and it floats around inside the battlefield.
Parenthesis about drones. Someone may ask about, as always, PvP versus PvE.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know some design idea behind these drones regarding PvP or PvE? Even if I probably know the answer already, which will be PvE, and PvP, well, we will see in the future when we will start developing it, maybe. I don't know. Is this the answer?
The answer is that we're doing PvE first, player versus environment first. But I think that that I've done PvP games, big PvP games in the past. And most of the stuff that we're doing, we're kind of keeping an eye on what we can do with that in PvP. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, when you think about this game and all the stuff that's in it, and then you think about a PvP territory control kind of game where you can build fortifications and they have, defensive points so that you have to blow them down in order to be able to get through them, and drones and mines and turrets and all that other stuff. It could be an incredible PvP game.
In connection to PvP, will players be able to stun enemies, and how?
Yeah, that's actually pretty straightforward. We have things that are called status effects in the game. So whether you're set on fire or electrified or stunned or frozen or any of those other things, we already have those in the game. And the players can do it. The creatures can do it to the players right now. And as of this weekend's update, the players will be able to do it to the creatures. Also when we get to PvP, they'll be able to do it to other players. So there are not only ways to do that, but there's also ways to remove the statuses. Right now, the easy one is the Helix. The medical device has a special on it to remove statuses in an area around you. There's consumables you can use to remove statuses. And later on, we'll also have resistances and stuff that you can unlock, and special protective gear that you can wear to be able to diminish or resist those completely.
Let's now talk about traps, a strategic gameplay mechanic that not everybody will probably use, as it's more like a passive combat system.
Yeah, mines are a pretty straightforward thing. They'll probably be time limited, so they only last for a certain amount of time, so that we don't end up getting, war-torn battlefield where everybody's scared to step in it for years to come. They're very easy to, like, if you can do turrets, you can do mines. Mines are a very, very simple version of turret. They just, you just place them and then they look around all the time, and if something gets close enough to them, they blow up. It's easy. We'll definitely have stuff like that.
Will weapons use ammo or energy, or are we going to stick with the current system?
Are we planning on keeping that, or are we going to switch into ammo and energy ammunition that we need to reload every now and then to shoot?
We've had a lot of discussions about it. I've made games in the past where we had ammo, and I've also made games in the past where we didn't have ammo. We are erring on the side of no ammo, but the way we're doing it right now, we have an energy battery on each of the different weapons. And the thing that we don't like about that is, even though it's a decent mechanism, people tend to just basically swap out their weapons so that they have a fresh energy battery all the time. And that's not really the gameplay we're going for. We thought about doing a universal battery so that all the weapons were drawing from the same battery, but that's also not what we're looking for directly, because if we're going to do that, if we're going to take that step, there's no reason to just not use focus instead, which is one of the 3 player stats. So if we use focus instead, if we convert all of the energy battery stuff over to focus, then the gameplay becomes less about just swapping weapons to get a fresh battery and more about using consumables to replenish your focus, and then managing your focus expenditures so that when you trigger specials, the expenditure that you use on those specials is actually impactful. It feels like that's going to be a better way to go. We just haven't made those changes yet.
Will there ever be any human-like enemies that will fight against us?
What about, AI's guys going around and shooting at us with human-like weapons, maybe? I don't know.
Well, the servitors are humanoid, and we are likely to see those very, very soon. And we've talked about later on when we're doing point of interest missions and things, where you get directed to go out, take this from here, go to another planet, and along the way there's hazards that try to intercept you and things like that. Some of those hazards could be human-controlled spacecraft and things like that. We haven't committed to that yet, because one of the things we're kind of trying to avoid is too much dialogue in the game. We don't really want to make this a story-driven game. It's more of a sandbox game with, a lot of story-based, story arc background elements. that players can participate in, but we don't want to make it dialogue rich. So we are not planning to do a lot of those, but Humanoid, for sure, why not?
Many times, you guys mentioned melee weapons. I remember questions about this topic even during live streams. Even if in the early stage, and considering we actually have some content to show about that, we will keep it for another Stars Reach Lab episode.
Hand-to-hand weaponry is great. It's something that we want to do. Right now, our game doesn't handle it very well. In fact, we just recently took the melee stuff out of creature attacks because we didn't like the way it was working. It's not that we're going to take it out permanently. We're going to be adding it back in later, but we took it out for right now because there weren't enough tells. There wasn't enough feedback about it. You couldn't see it coming, so you didn't know when to dodge, stuff like that. And that all has to be in there before melee starts to even be close to fun. And then when we start doing melee, then there's combos and patterns. There's being able to make sure that we can see what's going on and when to react and being able to do really fast, responsive, fluid combat. Right now, our game currently at the moment, we just recently ripped out the client prediction stuff that we had in there because we revamped the way we were doing weapons. So we're in the process of putting that back in. Well, until we put that back in, we're definitely not doing melee.
Clearly.
Because we need that to be really snappy.
We need precision with that.
Oh, we're definitely going to do it. There's not only the technical side of it, there's also a balance side. So like combat as it stands in the game has to change quite a bit in order to be able to do it. Because like, for instance, let's say we gave you a staff that does a ton of damage close up. Well, if you run into a close up battle right now and a monster spits out like 5 projectiles at you at a close range, you're going to get hit by most of those and you're not going to enjoy your melee experience. So what we have to do is we have to change the balance and the flow of the combat in order to incorporate melee elements when we add it in.
Many are asking for smoother gunplay because currently there is a bit of delay between firing a gun and when the blaster bolt, for example, actually comes out.
Are we going to create more servers in the future, like EU servers or Asian ones? I don't know.
The easy answer is yes, but the difficult part of it is the interface, because it's not like like when I was doing EverQuest or something, or the PlanetSide or something like that, where we just set up an EU server and that's the one you played on, no big deal. But in our game, the whole galaxy is a whole mess of servers that are interconnected with each other. So as you're going from planet to planet to planet, you're moving from server to server to server seamlessly so that you don't notice that. There's not going to be an EU galaxy and an Asian galaxy. We're not going to do, well, I don't think we're going to do that. We seriously could, but the game would have to be gigantic to justify that kind of cost. You know what I mean? So until then, what we're going to have to do is figure out some way to let people know that a particular planet is EU server based or Asia server based and stuff like that. And that's going to be a little bit tricky to pull off, but we definitely recognize the issue. Nobody wants an Australian to have to live on ping to the east coast of the United States. That's not the gameplay experience we want. So that does have to be resolved, but there are some issues.
I guess that the first step we're gonna take will be about prediction that we keep discussing about.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're working on that right now. Is to put the client prediction back in, because it's not, combat loses a lot when you fire the gun and then halfway across the countryside the projectile finally appears. That kind of stuff. We need to be able to do prediction of the client for that, so that we can get more smooth gameplay.
Yeah, I'm thinking now if in I don't know 3 years there'll be some sort of Stars Reach competitive or esports stuff.
That would be amazing.
Dreaming, yeah, that will be amazing, but I guess we are gonna use US servers and EU servers, because in that case client prediction could cause some messy results between players.
Yeah, no, if we're doing esports kind of thing, then we will absolutely set that stuff up. That would be an isolated pocket in the complete galaxy, and so that would be easy to accommodate.
Let's talk now about ground vehicles and whether they will ever play a role in the game.
My experience is that the wheels, the suspension, the four-wheel suspension, that's the hard part. That's where you start to get into trouble. So, like, obviously, we're going to start where we don't do that. We'll start with, like, grav vehicles. So, I know that the very first thing we're going to put into the game as a vehicle is a grav sled. So that you
like
can carry more stuff. Yeah, it just hovers. Yeah. So you get that kind of Star Wars speeder kind of look, where it's kind of hovering above the ground. That's relatively easy. There's still some physics challenges there. You can get some weirdness, like if it flips over a cliff and starts doing end-to-end stuff, then what happens to the vehicle, and fun stuff like that. And that's where you get all the crazy videos and stuff that people do all the time. And then we get to the next one, which will probably be when we eventually get to wheels. And to be honest, I don't know when we're going to do that, because there's a lot we can do with just the grav stuff that's a lot simpler. I mean, even like a bike speeders or something like that would be a lot of fun, and we don't necessarily need wheels.
We need to invent the wheel again.
Well, we're sci-fi. We're a sci-fi game, so we can get away with a lot that doesn't have. We don't have to do wheels. It's like we can do steam turbines, but it's a sci-fi game. So, do you really want to work with steam turbines?
What about mech legs then?
I love giant robots. I think I've done 4 different giant robot games in my career. We're not doing that.
Oh no. I love that. I love robots. Come on.
I love giant robots. I mean, I really do. I worked on the Mech 2 games way back when. Heavy Gear. We had giant robots in PlanetSide. I really like giant robots, but no, we're not doing that right away. It's an MMO, so I'm not going to say never. I'm not going to say never, but it might be 5-10 years before we get around to doing stuff like that.
I can wait.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Will weapons have recoil or bullet spread?
Yes. One of my favorite mechanisms is the tight reticle, that when you do a burst, it starts to loosen up the more shots you fire in a row. I could easily see doing that. We have some stuff like that in skill trees already, so that there's positioned uncertainty after you do salvos and bursts. We have a salvo mechanism we haven't put into the game yet. Internally we can use it, but it's not live. Where there's you can, with one trigger pull, you can do a bunch of things. And one of those things that I was just recently experimenting was just a 3-round burst. It sort of goes, as you do it. And that's working very well. Now we have to play with that reticle spread so that we get that kind of loosening up. And then you can spread that out. And then it's up to you whether you do a long sustained burst or a tight one for control. And that's a fun gameplay element. So yeah, I would expect that.
And is there any connection to hit scan weapons, like laser ones?
Well, those will. Okay, we have an interesting tactical. I don't want to say tactical. We have because it's an MMO. We have a lot of different kinds of players, and so from the very first day when we started talking about combat, we started talking about the fact that we have a wide variety of players. Like, it's not just FPS players where they're really good and you can expect them to be, crack shots and all that other stuff. We have a lot of people that are coming in from, like, say, EverQuest, and they've never tried to play a game where it was real-time action, or they're not super familiar with it. It's not their bag of tricks. So we have homing shots, and we have area of effect and crowd control weapons and things like that, so that there are weapons that you can absolutely go with and learn very easily, so that you can be effective on a battlefield. And then we'll also have, for those people that are really, really good at FPS games and things like that, we'll also have those tight control abilities where you can go in and utilize your skills and be rewarded for it over and above the people that are very much more casual, so that you can show off and be rewarded for having good skills at those sorts of things. So there's a wide variety of elements. And one of the things that we don't have in the game right now that I would like to add is overheat on the beam weapons. So that you can, a long sustained burst of a beam, it will eventually overheat and maybe even damage your gun. Item damage is another system that's still not in yet. And that will be good gameplay also, because then you're playing against you don't just like paint an entire area with a beam constantly. You have to, you play with it, and it gets stronger or weaker depending on how long you're doing it, and then it overheats and burns out and things like that.
Will there be weak points for monsters and players?
Not currently. That's not on our radar.
Headshots, not even?
Definitely not headshots. Not even in PvP right now. That doesn't mean we couldn't do it. Everything is possible, but we're going with until we start optimizing the game, we don't really want to have a lot of different hit locations and have to do a whole bunch of different capsules per person and so on and so forth. We also don't do things like, like you can't shoot somebody's leg out or a creature's wings off or anything like that. That would be nice things to add in the future, and it's definitely an area that that combat could expand into, but it's not in our current designs. I could see it, like where it would appear first, if it was going to appear anywhere, would be on bosses. That's where we'd probably play with the body hit location stuff first, and then if players were happy with that, then we might start migrating it into other stuff.
At some point, players will be able to wear armor or clothing that will eventually give some advantages or disadvantages.
One of the reasons why we're eager to get the character creation system in is because then we can start doing the protective gear stuff that I just barely mentioned earlier. Like, heat suits that protect you against lava, so you can actually swim through lava, and being able to resist different types of damage like shock and heat and things like that. So protective gear on that front, coupled with the shields that we already have. And right now we only have 2 kinds of shields, and we're supposed to have 5 according to the designs. So there's a bunch of different capabilities that are still to come. The combination of all that stuff will give people not only a lot of things to craft, but also a lot of decisions to make when they're getting ready to go into a field, a battlefield, and that's a fun thing. The more decisions, the better.
If I had the possibility to choose my avatar or character, I don't know, does that mean that if I choose something slim and small, I have some sort of advantage in terms of hitbox?
No.
Maybe?
No. We're not doing that. And we're intentionally not doing that right now. So like right now, the hitbox is the same on all of them. Now, will we do that in the future? If we did that, then we would have to compensate it so that the big guys, there was some reason to select them. Because otherwise, anybody that's playing PvP is going to play the smallest possible character. And nobody...
And like a tank, big and, with a lot of HP.
Right. That
large one, yeah.
Balancing elements like that. And we're avoiding that at the moment, because one of the things we want to do is we want to be able to set up a sandbox game where people can imagine the characters that they want and then build it using whatever the elements there are. And if they ever feel like, well, I want to do PvP someday, so I have to take the small character, then that means that they will never take the big one. I've tossed stuff around in the past, like, Squatchy can climb trees faster, or cats can dodge a little bit better and things like that. But hitbox is a big deal. And right now we're intentionally making it all exactly the same.
In what ways will players be able to customize weapons?
Is there any idea or vision to say one day I want to let players improve some specific elements of the weapons? Because right now, when we craft, for example, a blaster, it's random, the stats, right, we get.
It's kind of random.
Kind of.
It feels random because our UI feedback isn't good enough yet. But okay, there's going to be several layers of decision making when you're crafting a weapon. One of them is the what we call the PQRV stuff, which is potential, quality, resilience, and versatility. And that's the stats that any resource has. And you have to pick and choose which resources you're using when you're building all the components and things like barrels and energy adapters and things like that. When you're doing those things, the end product that you're going for is affected in certain ways by whatever its stats are. So like, for instance, the damage might be higher on a weapon if your quality is very high, and the battery might last a lot longer if the versatility is high, so on and so forth. So, and that applies to everything, not just weapons, but anything, like the armor we were talking about earlier, or your grav vehicle or whatever. They're all affected by their stats. So there's a lot of decisions to make during the process of crafting about what you want the eventual end result stats to be and how that will affect the weapon. Now, in addition to that, I was mentioning earlier that you can unlock a bunch of different specials for the weapon. Well, you don't just plug and play those. You don't just buy one blaster and then you can plug and play all your specials into that blaster whenever you want to. You actually have to build the specials into the weapon. So when you're making the weapon, you have to decide which specials you want in there. And when you're a crafter, that's like, well, which ones are going to be the most popular for selling, those kinds of things. But when you're going to use it, you're still making decisions about what it is. So you might have multiple blasters that all have different specials, and you switch between them, those sorts of things. And then beyond that, there's also appearance customization. So you'll be able to paint it different colors, you'll be able to name it, be able to add some descriptions, and maybe even some other visual silhouette changes and stuff too. I'm not sure about that last one, but the rest of it is the rest of it we're absolutely solid on.
Like skins and weapons, you mean?
Huh?
Like weapon skins?
Pretty much. I mean, the way that we're building all of our items right now, we have what we internally call Super Shader, which is being able to designate textures and colors and stuff on different surfaces and be able to swap them out really easily. And it's kind of a universal thing in the game. So since we have that, there's no reason why we can't create an interface for the players so that they can designate different areas as different colors and textures and things like that and make it look really different.
This Super Shader, correct me if I'm wrong, from my experiences, it is a combination between UV mapping of single items and a 4K map with all the colors and shapes.
Yeah.
So basically the game is going to pick a specific sectors with certain data and is going to apply that specific small data from the 4K map inside the UV.
Absolutely.
Creating like millions of combination with a super small space in terms of assets within Unity assets.
And then in theory, we can even allow people to scale that texture up and down and things so they can get different effects.
Or to combine, creating, things that combine together in 2x2, 4x4. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be cool. Really cool. Weapon customization, well, just customization of everything is going to be pretty wild.
Thank you for watching, and I remind you that everything you see or you hear from us is subject to change. That means that we may change or update some details from time to time, but we will always keep you guys updated. If you have any questions, please leave them below in a comment, or feel free to ask those during a live stream. Thank you again, and to Dave for this interview, and see you in the next episode.
I guess we can end the interview here. Do you want to wave to the audience, like saying hi?
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Howdy!